Welcome back, you accursed. I don't know what you expect, but we're going to talk politics for an hour, whether you like it or not. It's the true dog days of summer, and we're working with pretty thin gruel. No Jordan again today, still raising her family, but Scott and Kory are here with me today.
Not raising families.
Not raising their families.
Absent fathers.
There's some stuff we could have talked about today. Kamala Harris's VP pick, but she just announced it a few minutes ago. And you accursed don't like to hear us talk about American politics anyway. We could have talked about bots promoting Polyev events, but it's just a Twitter rumor at this point. If it becomes more corroborated, we might come back to that. What we are going to talk about first is the weird label. Now, VP pick Tim Walz used it first. And now Democrats are full on accusing Trump, Vance, and MAGA of being weird. In the last few days, there's been some evidence that liberals here in Canada like this idea and have been trying it out on Polyev and the Conservatives. We'll break down that strategy both south and north of the border. Our cursed clipping comes from the National Post and Adam Pankratz on BC United's latest attempt to undo what they have done. Then we'll wheel around to look at attack ads launched by Pierre Poilievre and the CPC against the third party, the NDP. I think it's a good ad. Let's see if Kory and Scott agree. All right, guys. How you been?
Good. Got caught in the rain twice in the last 10 hours. So, but other than that, I'm doing.
And yet
good.
your hair is impeccable.
I don't know. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. My suit is definitely not. I'm a little waterlogged for those watching on YouTube.
If I got caught in a downpour, I would not look as good as you. Well, I don't look as good as you anyway. Scott, it was good to see you this weekend.
Yeah, David and I, Kory, Dave and I spent the weekend together. It's like a young couple in Manhattan or something. Getaway up in the wilds of Gatineau, of St. Pierre to Wakefield. Yeah, it was a great time. Thank you for having me. Well, lots of fun. Many beers drank. Lots of just sitting around doing nothing. I was getting...
Celebrating Mahoney's 65th birthday. Retire that guy, for Christ's sake. He's getting as old as Broadbent was when he ran against him.
So many birthday celebrations for Rick. I participated in 2 birthday dinners. I'm conscious of 2 that I missed. So that's 4. I mean, there's literally 65 moving parts to Rick's 65th birthday. I think it's impressive. I don't know if you noticed, David.
This is what having lots of friends looks like, Scott. This is what it's familiar to you and I. When you have lots of friends and you change age, you get lots of parties. We were commenting off air, I'm not close friends with him like you are, but every time I meet him, he is like the friendliest, the nicest, the most gregarious guy you could ever hope to meet. This is not how people react to you and I. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I know. No, people always are like...
little harder edged, maybe, yeah.
Love that guy. Rick's a great guy. Hey, I know Rick. I'm like, yeah.
Why are those people judging me? Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, David, but so kids are away. I'm at your cottage. It's a long weekend. I was having trouble on Sunday afternoon just sitting on the dock in the sun. I found that uncomfortable. I can't... I think I've lost the ability to chill.
Not me.
I found this state of relaxation unnatural. So I'm glad to be back working.
Yeah, chilling is becoming one of my great skills. All right, so weirdness. This phrase may have made Governor Walz the VP pick, inventing this phrase. Trump has a million habits I think are weird. Vance seems like a strange dude too. And MAGA events are like circus shows. But that's me. Scott, when the Democrats call the Republicans weird, are they cleverly isolating them from the mainstream? Or are they reflecting a coastal cool kids mentality that middle America will resent?
I think it works for them. I think that it is definitely the coastal elites bias that you're talking about, no question. And so they'll... it leaves the Republicans in a position to say, oh, yeah, you think it's weird? What, is this weird? Right? And then they've got have my father, Donald, have my child, Donald Trump t-shirts on and stuff. But I think all really good campaigns like this, it unlocks a logic that makes people's heads nod. So I think there's a lot of voters in particular that are on the brink of whether like Republicans who aren't 100% sure that they can stomach Trump, I think independent voters, it's obviously a galvanizing thing for Democratic voters base, but I think that it a little bit like, when Kory and the team cooked up, he didn't come back for you. Like I think when you hit these things, it causes people to say, that's right. You went inside my brain and you scooped out what I was thinking, but I haven't been saying it. So that's it's a very specific, individualized aha moment. And I think even though weird's a pretty generic term, I think it unlocks it in a way that works for the Democrats. And I think it's a little bit of an awkward one for the Republicans to fight back, because it's just strange to say to people, I'm not weird. I'm not weird. Are you weird? You're weird for calling me weird. You look fucking weird. You're fat and weird. How about that? Like, so I do think that there's enough aberrant behavior visible from Trump and from others that I think it bullseyes the logic in the way that he didn't come back for you, which is probably my all-time favorite, did.
So, Kory, when Waltz did the interview where he raised this thing, he didn't talk about weird things like Trump walking over to the side of the stage or hugging a flag or the fact that Trump can't hold a bottle of water with one hand or any of the things like that are weird about Trump. He talked about the weird issues that MAGA focuses on and Republicans focus on. I don't know whether people think when Democrats say that focusing on pronouns at school is weird. I don't know that people think that's weird.
Yeah. Well, I think it's...
I'm just worried that I'm weird, Kory, is the truth of the matter, right?
Let's just settle this right now. The three of us are weird, okay? In case the audience is wondering, we're all weird. We're here talking about politics.
The word you're looking for is
every
sexy.
Week. That's weird, right? That's weird. Like 80% of the country is not doing this. I think it is a better line of attack in a couple of ways. One, it is sufficiently vague that people can fill in that blank as to what is weird with their own item. And there's some flexibility in that. But more importantly, I think far more importantly, it is off the, hyperventilating into a paper bag, democracy is over, bullshit that has been the dominant attack line on Trump for years now, and it has not worked. Right. It is the opposite of worked. So, because it's something that is true to your fellow hardcore believers in your party, doesn't mean it's a winning message. It doesn't mean it's a good line of attack. And in fact, I think it's an alienating line of attack. Like people live through a Trump presidency, and I think weird is probably a better description of some of the extremities of that than democracy is over. Look, the United States survived a Trump presidency, and the sky didn't fall. And so saying that the sky is going to fall if he comes back again is sort of not a credible line, I would say, to all except the hardened base of the Democratic Party. And so, look, it's not that the weird line is such a wonderful line. It's it's replacing something that is just proven to be so entirely inadequate as a line of attack, far too hyperbolic.
Scott, dig into it a little bit. What works about it? What does it get at? Why would it influence a vote?
I think that's the critical test of this stuff. So it's got, when you try to design one of these kind of almost opponent defining, opponent unlocking memes or critiques, you've got to hit upon something that plugs into a genuine insight, right? It can't just be something that you think and you and your friends think about them. It can be that, but it has to be more than that, or it's not useful. And so I'll just take as the model, and Kory can embellish as he sees because he was there. I think with Ignatieff, he didn't come back for you. I just think that it wasn't just something that conservatives believed and it made them good to say it to themselves. They recognized through research, like somebody was playing with that concept, maybe said it quite a little bit differently, probably originally, and scrapped it on a piece of paper with 6 other options. But when they took it into a focus group, what they found was it got people's heads nodding, and then it unlocked a river. I'm just guessing, Kory, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it unlocked a river of feedback with people agreeing and adding the example that they had for that, or the evidence that they have detected in that, and that it becomes something that's bigger than the assertion itself. It becomes definitional. And so I think weird does actually work for the Democrats when it comes to Trump, because some of the conduct you're seeing from him in his performances, it's not as disciplined as it was in 2016. He doesn't have the rallying cause and call of build the wall, which, by the way, I think he needs. He needs a substitute for it badly. So he rambles on about other things, and half of it is weird looking, and I think it is off-putting, and so I think it works in that sense. But then J.D. Vance is some of his behaviors, obviously, like it is almost by any objective standard weird, but it's a vessel into which people can pour different things, all of which says weird. And so that's what I think. It's the underlying, it isn't the label, it's the logic, and it's the ability of people to latch onto that logic, agree with it, and add to it in and of themselves. So it's got that kind of universal appeal in many respects. And obviously, there are going to be people who are going to be like, I'm J.D. Vance's sister. I don't agree with that. But I think that's when you really get hammering on it. And I think for those reasons, there's lots of conduct we have seen. And what's also nice about it is we know there's lots of conduct that we will see that Democrats will be able to say, well, that's fucking weird, right? And they'll be able to plug that in. And so I think it's the specificity of it. But also the logic that allows people to add and embellish and Lego their own way onto it.
Yeah, Kory, I don't mean to put words in your mouth because you didn't say this was great. You just thought it was more effective than what they've been doing. But I'm curious about, there are voters out there. I mean, Trump is a bad candidate because he should have been beating Biden much worse than he was beating him. Because if you ask people whether the economy was stronger under Trump or under Biden, it's no contest. If you ask people whether the border was more secure under Trump or under Biden, it's no contest. If you ask people whether they'd rather America be at peace or at war, it's no contest. So there have been a lot of people that believe that a Trump presidency was better than the Biden presidency, who've been reluctant to commit to Trump in this election because of his other issues that he has. So, Kory, how does an attack like this, play into that?
Well, look, I think, how does it play into that? That's a good question. Look, I think there's a bunch of different things going on that's more than just this attack. And I think too much is getting put on the shoulders of this attack as to what's actually working for the Harris campaign. There are a few things going on that changed once Biden was gone. Like it changed the fundamental choice between a Biden presidency and a Trump presidency. Now it's a Trump presidency and something that's potentially new. The American electorate has tended to have a greater propensity to lean towards new than it does to old in many cases, where there's a very stark generational difference between Trump, who's now the oldest person to have run for president ever, and Harris, who's significantly younger. I think there's other stuff going on here too. Like Trump was in 2016 the absolute all-time master of social media and campaigning to date. Like his use of Twitter and being able to suck up all the oxygen in the media universe was unlike anything I think any of us had ever seen before. That is not true anymore. Now he's sort of ranting to himself on Truth Social and being outflanked. Like the one of the weaknesses of I think of progressive parties generally compared to conservative parties, but certainly Republicans and Democrats, this has been true historically. The left can't meme. They don't know how to use those sorts of attacks effectively. And what I think
it's because we're humorless.
Well, that could be the case. That could be the case. Certainly, the more you go down the progressive spectrum, the more humorless one is. Like you literally can't enjoy a joke about sex or religion or politics.
How dare you joke about lunch programs?
Right. Yeah.
There are children who need an apple. And so then we're like, we take ourselves. And this is what happens, though. It is. Like, we get up our own ass.
Okay, but let's look at what's happened so far in this campaign. The ability to use sort of false news, fake attacks like JD Vance fucking a couch, which, has been referenced on this show a number of times, totally fucking made up, totally an internet lie, and turned into a meme that burned like a wildfire across the internet to the point where a lot of people think it's true. Now, in past campaign experience with Trump was the guy doing that. Trump was the guy questioning whether or not you were actually a citizen, and you're seeing him trying to do it in a more ham-fisted way now. But if Trump was the master of Twitter, then in this campaign, Harris is the master of TikTok, and one's the past and the other's the future in terms of influence within certain demographics out in voter land. So, look, I think this is about a lot more things than weird. I think it's about social media campaigning and the nuances of that, and just who's really on point right now culturally and who isn't. So, in a time of anti-incumbent vibes, you've got a former president running against somebody who is new to a lot of the electorate. There's a reason why she has more momentum right now.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to have one small footnote on the pure weird thing as a meme. I think some credit should go. Like Tim Walz obviously sort of championed it, and now we see he's ridden a crust of some of that stuff to the VP pick, which is not a bad place for a guy who used to be a school teacher. Right on. Yeah. And he's a chubby old white guy. So
there's hope for you, Scott.
I'm sorry. I'm starting to paint his portrait in my front room. Hero time. But George W. Bush, I think, had the reaction that sort of birthed this when Trump gives his inaugural speech. It goes down. It's all, burning fires and the end of the world. And Bush gets up and mumbles, that was some weird shit. And I think in many ways that's the origin of it, because I think my guess is that Walz remembered that and remembered how it sounded like what people say, right? People are like, whoa, that's fucking weird shit. And so I just think it's when you hit that kismet, that Yahtzee of something, right? And I just think that's what's happening here. And you want to be like Trump always was, as Kory says, you want to be in a place where you're saying what the audience is saying or thinking. And so, little footnote. I think if this goes down in history, George Bush deserves a little bit of credit.
All right. Kory, he said that to Hillary, I think. I always loved that.
And Michelle Obama, I thought. Wasn't it?
Grab your cheesies and rum and cokes. TELUS is making its way east, with its pure fiber internet service heeding the call from the government for the urgent need for more sustainable competition in Ontario and Quebec. Leveraging the interim CRTC decision and following rigorous network testing, TELUS has already begun signing up subscribers for 24-month contracts in Ontario and Quebec. That's right, folks. TELUS is here to make sure you can stream, game, and watch as many cat videos as your heart desires. This isn't just about giving you internet options with the speed of light. It's about shaking things up and giving consumers more choices when it comes to selecting the internet services that work best for them. And we all know more competition means more options for you, the internet-loving public, and TELUS is all in on this mission. As you've heard before on this pod, this isn't TELUS's first rodeo in the internet arena of the East. Earlier this year, when snow was still covering the ground, TELUS's flanker brand Koodo first galloped into the market in Ontario, Quebec, and Manitoba in 2023. This year, the Happy Stack offer gave residents a chance to bundle their phone and internet, because who doesn't want to save on bills? Now the TELUS brand is entering the ring, offering customers a chance to experience the blistering speeds that TELUS Pure Fiber delivers. You know, folks, the sheer size of TELUS and its unbeaten track record of giving back to the communities it serves. That's a business I want competing in my neck of the woods. So keep your eyes peeled, Hurley-Burleyites. You may already be seeing info about this new fiber offering around town or in your inboxes. And with the CRTC's final decision looming soon, know that TELUS is already out there, providing more sustainable competition and choice to the fine people of the East. So Kory, as is always the case in Canada, we import what's happening in the United States. So in the last week, we've seen Trudeau say that Poilievre doesn't have his feet on the ground. We've seen Mark Garretson and other MPs jumping out and using the term weird. Maybe Sean Fraser did too in a tweet. So Liberals are starting to see if they can make this work against Poilievre. But this is after months of Poilievre calling Trudeau wacko. Right?
Yeah.
And so who's weird in Canadian politics, and does it matter?
It's such a strange phenomenon, the way the Liberal Party in particular looks south and parrots political strategies and messages that are I think a sign predominantly that they don't do their own research. To answer Scott's earlier question, yes, those kinds of attacks that were effective on Ignatieff came up again and again in focus testing, and with a surprising number of people who would say some version of those exact same words. And I find good attacks that always happens, but it is just such a different place, and Trump and Poilievre are such different people. Poilievre is wearing a t-shirt and is physically fit and young and all of that. And he's talking about bread and butter, regular people issues and in regular people settings. And you've got Liberals kind of off in la la land on things like safe injection sites and weird pronouns and all of this other shit. The attack, the weird attack has been going on in the Canadian market for quite some time now, and you put your finger on it, wacko. Except it's being used to beat the shit out of Liberals. So, yeah, I'm not sure it's importable, but the flailing around looking for a message south of the border is not new. As I say, it's a sign that they're not doing their own research.
Scott, I worry that the Liberals are relying too much on who these fringe elements that Poilievre has been known to stop and give a coffee to or drop off and say hi to. I continue to believe that's not going to have any traction. I mean, I thought the Wood video was weird. If you want to say weird, I thought the Wood video had weird elements to it, but I don't think that attack is going to stick on him. It doesn't feel to me like that's going to work.
So, I over the weekend, I hate this. I hate the lift. I hate the kind of I hate the laziness of the lift. And so I sent out a tweet, an X, whatever the fuck, on the weekend and was critical of the Liberal tactic of this. And I got a lot of heavy pushback from Liberals, and including some senior Liberals who were flat out angry, completely. You could tell were clear. Some more angry than others, but you could tell were angry with me. And there were a couple of threads to that, if you'll bear with me, but I thought it was instructive, the reaction I got. So one of the threads was the whataboutisms, right? So that's typical of you wade into commentary these days. Well, what about this? What about that? What about the other guys? And what about wacko and all that stuff? I didn't think wacko worked, by the way. And I was critical of wacko for the same reason. I felt like it was just too lazy. I didn't feel like it didn't meet the test of what we talked about of actually unlocking a logic that everyone agrees or that gathers others who are not inherently to your side. It just felt like you're talking to your own base as opposed to trying to expand it and create a broader logic that unlocks some fundamental insight. So I thought that was lazy. So all the whataboutisms, sure. Okay, fine. But this thing was in front of me. So I was responding to this thing, this use of weird, this imported use of weird. Second thing I'd say, the big pushback on, well, he is weird and this stuff is weird and these fringe elements are weird and tactics and things they say. And look at that crazy MP from Peterborough and other people. And look at what, Rempel says. And, it is fucking weird. And it's like, yeah, okay, I can agree with you. This thing is weird or that thing's weird. That's all right. My concern is this. My critique is this. And I will not relax on my critique on this because I feel it very strongly. I feel that there is some juice in this attack. I feel that there are things that he stands for and asserts that and associates with that are not as mainstream as his embrace of them makes it seem like it might be. And I think there may be some juice in those kinds of attacks. But I believe absolutely that you piss that away, you denude it, and you literally limit your ability to effectively explore those strategies and execute them when you lazily just latch on to something that Tim Walz is saying in the United States and say, well, why don't we try that here? It does speak, as Kory says, to the absolute deficit of research. It means there's no rigor. It means that no one has sat down and said...
Probably means that none of their 20 things on their website's really taken off.
Absolutely. And so to me, what my pushback to the pushback, and the reason if I sound pissy, it's because I am pissy about it. I don't like being called a bad liberal. Go fuck, okay? I don't like the laziness of this. I don't like taking what might be an actual opportunity and a correct approach and doing the hard work of researching it, refining it, crafting it. There's no craft in taking somebody else's attack that was built toward Donald Trump and used by American legislators and just trying to throw it into a meme and a tweet here in Canada. That is not craft. Do not piss this opportunity away.
But Scott, wait a second. Scott, let me just push back on you for a second, because the Liberals have convinced themselves that Trump and Poilievre are similar, that they can turn Poilievre into Trump. That's why they're waiting for this November election. That's why in their strategy, that's their springboard back, is they can run against Trump and Poilievre together. Now, I don't think those people have anything in common, and I don't think Canadians will see them that way, but the Liberals do.
There's only one test. There's only one test. What works? And the fact that you think that there are things that are overlapping or corresponding or shared between them in terms of their politics, or their approaches, their strategies, their tools, techniques, stuff that they're using, constituencies they're tapping, ways that they're appealing. The fact that you might think there are similarities, right, matters only if it works. And you don't know if it works until you do proper research and you shape the thing and you refine it. The critical element of this sort of thing is specificity and individualization. It has to unlock something about Pierre Poilievre. It can't just be, oh yeah, that makes me think that Poilievre, like Trump, is this way. So I just think, I look at it, and my objection to it is that it's lazy. It demonstrates that real rigor hasn't been exerted. And I think it really speaks to craft. And when you're behind by 18 points, I don't think the right approach is to say, well, let's just try anything and everything. It's like, no, actually, let's find the thing that will help. And this is, I just keep using the same word. It just drives me crazy. I think this is laziness.
It's charitable of you to pick a good poll for them. Kory had something to say.
Yeah. Look, I agree. It's lazy, but it's also, part of the problem with the democracy attack on Trump south of the border. Part of the problem with this is it's got to be associated with things that are actually important to people. And why I'm not so down on the wacko attack, because it's not actually personal. It's actually about the encampment down the road and the idea that, giving hardcore drugs away to people.
Well, it's the juxtaposition to common sense, right, Kory?
Is wacko. The pronoun stuff at school to 90+% of Canadians is wacko. And so it's actually grounded in a commonly shared belief. The belief that Pierre Poilievre is somehow Donald Trump, who's infiltrated in disguise the Canadian market and is running for the prime ministership here, is something that is shared by, a few dozen people in Langevin block and fewer as you get concentric circles away from that building. Like, it is not a shared belief by the masses. It is a aspiration as to what they'd like to be true. And it's devoid of anything other than their own, individual political interest. It's not about the voters. It's about politics in Ottawa.
If Poilievre was really Trump, he would be claiming to be world champion weightlifter.
Right.
Again,
Right.
You know what? I would go in. I would research a bunch of stuff. Find out if people do think there are overlaps and similarities, but only insofar as and do
surely that's been done. Surely
do any of those things affect your thinking?
That.
Might they change your vote? And if the answer is no, then stop. Then give up and move on to something. It's got to be specific.
Well, but like the pushing of like the abortion narrative, for instance, against like the first openly pro-choice leader of the party in like probably forever. Like it is so devoid of actually linkages to facts and things that are actually going on.
My bigger problem with that, Kory, is rolling it out a year and a half before an election. That's an election campaign attack line. That's not a. That's
sure,
not
but surely to God there are better things. Like attacks have to be on things.
I don't know. It's a good issue. I think in certain circumstances.
Well,
we've fought this before. We've had this fight. Let's move on. Let's do a clipping. Let's do a clipping. I just remembered, Kory, that you and I have fought about this before, whether abortion is a winning issue or not.
Okay, moving on.
It's almost cliche to say so, but if there was any doubt left about our changing climate, well, Jasper. We all watched in disbelief last month as wildfire burned through a national treasure. Just to be clear, the Jasper wildfire remains out of control, threatening other nearby communities. And the Jasper fire is just one of hundreds burning beyond control at the moment. So far this year, over 3,700 fires have erupted on 2.2 million hectares, mostly in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and the far north. That's above the seasonal average, and we're only halfway through the season. Smoke from Canadian fires has once again spread across the continent. Our sponsor, CN, has been on the front lines in Jasper. It has offered evacuation assistance, provided residents with fuel to allow life to continue, and has put two of its heavyweight firefighting trains, Trident and Neptune, to work. Trident and Neptune can go anywhere there's a track. They each arrived with 49,000 gallons of water, foam, and fire retardants deployed through pumps and water cannon. In Jasper, CN firefighters worked closely with provincial and federal authorities, and the railway only began a gradual resumption of train service once it was clear it could be done safely. But the situation is fluid. CN stands ready to respond to an increase in fire activity again at any time. The fact is, CN lives along its network. Hundreds of CN railroaders and their families were directly hit by the Jasper fire. This spring, CN pledged $10 million over 10 years for disaster relief across North America through a partnership with the volunteer force at Team Rubicon. Some of that money will be put to good use in Jasper and other affected areas out west. BC United, the former BC Liberal Party, government from 2003 to 2017, polled at 9% last week. Behind the Greens, more importantly, less than a third of the Conservative vote, who are tied with the NDP. Last week, BC United announced that they would ask Elections BC to use the name Liberal on the ballot in addition to United. Their rationale was that their polling showed that 30% of BC voters didn't know the Liberals were the United. What a complete and utter failure. Here's Adam Pankratz writing in the National Post. To make awful matters just that little bit worse, on Tuesday, another BCU MLA, Teresa Watt, defected to the Conservatives. This makes 4 BCU MLAs to decide there's no future staying with Falcon. BC United has achieved the nearly impossible in the last 6 to 12 months. They managed to make zero inroads in the minds of BC voters, despite facing a lackluster NDP leadership whose flagship policies, such as hard drug decriminalization or building British Columbians enough housing, were either outright failures or damp squibs. Falcon and BCU had a chance to call for a real departure from the activist NDP government disaster and instead decided to avoid controversy at all costs, leaving a massive vacuum in the centre-right of BC politics. Whether one agrees with everything John Rustat says or every conservative policy, one thing is clear. They are different from the NDP. Can BCU say the same? Not convincingly and more like barely at all. That the party formerly known as the BC Liberals has been reduced to begging Elections BC to have 2 names on the ballot is just the latest act in a series of missteps, poor decisions, and delusional moves since Kevin Falcon took the helm. A party with neither message nor brand is not something that generally wins hearts and minds. Kory, that seems pretty right to me. I don't really see a way back for them. They're as relevant as social credit right now.
Well, when you're in 4th at 9%, and you've lost, 4 out of what was their caucus to begin with in the low 20s. So, substantial double-digit percentage of your caucus has crossed the floor to another party. This is as bad as it gets, I think. I think it's pretty much over. And this. At this point, it's die with dignity and grace. It's like you want to be going out with like class, like in Gladiator, where you're supposed to take it like a man and get the sword in the back of the neck, as opposed to groveling and slobbering all over the feet of another party, which is what saying put the Liberal Party back on the ballot as a name looks like. It looks like it's over. I just don't, I think it's over. And if they are serious about wanting to stop the NDP from becoming government, then there is an obvious thing to do, which is to die with dignity. Not what this is. This is humiliating and unbecoming for, I think, Kevin Falcon.
Scott, I haven't seen anything like this since Classic Coke.
Yeah. Well, to Kory's point, Jason Isbell has a lyric in one of his songs that says, "One thing I know for sure is there ain't no thing such as dying with dignity." And I don't think we're going to witness it in British Columbia. I think this is delicious. From afar, I have to say, there's something that I perversely and pathetically enjoy about this. I think, one, I enjoy it as a partisan because there was such a stampede toward, let's get rid of that goddamn Liberal brand. It's got no fucking juice whatsoever. It's just an anchor, and then a rush to it. And now here they are in this kind of horrifying situation. And they have to grovel and backstep and petition to permit people to see the name Liberal associated with them because they realize that it might be the only constituency of voters available to them. So that's sort of, I enjoy that as a partisan, but there's a personal thing. Do you guys not I've having authored so many colossal fuck ups in my personal and professional life. It also resonates with me. So that cringe thing makes me go, oh my God. Oh, that reminds me of that time in grade 11 when I asked that foreign exchange student out. Oh my God. It's just got that sort of feel to it. It's like, you break up with your partner and you're super angry and you're like, I will take the dog and you can keep the house. I don't give a shit. And then 3 months later, you're like, oh my God. And then you have to go back and it's like, I need the house. I need the house and I need the money from the house. And could you keep the dog this weekend? And it's just so gruesome. When you're at 9% in this circumstance, almost certainly it means that you're headed to 3. How Falcon is able to sustain his caucus at the size it is. I suppose those people look and they don't see anywhere to jump, but I would.
I think they see someplace to jump, right? And they're jumping.
Yeah, but you would think that would be happening in larger numbers. Is all I mean. That may be the next stage.
Give it time.
Yeah, that may be the next stage. We may see a stampede of those folks, and their only hope now is not a strategy. Their only hope is a prayer, and that is that the BC Conservatives, will have, bimbo and idiot explosions, that they'll say extreme and alienating and, racist, crazy shit or something like that. That's their only hope. And even that isn't going to drive people back into their arms. It's going to drive them toward the NDP or keep them at home.
As you lose more and more of your support base in your caucus, those start to sound more like attacks on yourself. It's like, this group of radicals headed by a former minister in our government and joined by a bunch of other people who were ministers in our government. It sort of looks like, people are marching away.
No,
from
they
the
don't have
leadership
any
team.
argument left. Kory, they don't have an argument left.
No. I don't know what would you advise them, Kory? In all honesty, in this situation, it's easy to say how they shouldn't have gotten here, but now that they are, I don't know what you would do.
Die with dignity. Because that's really what I think it is. Like, I would look at stepping down. I would be looking at taking a party off the ballot, not changing it back to the Liberal Party on the ballot.
Well, certainly, I think Falcon should consider whether or not he should run in the election. But
agreed.
I want to propose one thing. They could go back in time, because Falcon's going to take too much blame for this. He's been terrible. Every decision he's made, and he's unappealing. So he deserves a lot of blame. But there's a guy in this picture called Andrew Wilkinson. And Andrew Wilkinson replaced Christy Clark as the leader of the BC Liberal Party. And in the last election that Christy Clark ran in, the one that she lost government, she won the popular vote. Okay? And then 2 years later, this guy named Andrew Wilkinson, who was terrible leader, weak, unappealing, had no presence or visibility, didn't understand politics at all, got smoked, lost really bad, 50-33 in the election. And they lost the cities. And so the party was pushed back into the interior and other places where they tended to have their conservative elements. So in a lot of respects, the BC Liberal Party, as we knew it, was on its knees when Falcon took it over, and he just finished it off. But the lesson for me is how important it is to get the leadership choice right. You get it wrong a couple times in a row, and you can be in trouble.
Yeah, it's almost like being a tech company. You're only 2 bad product launches away from oblivion. Ask BlackBerry how quickly that can turn on you. But a few really bad decisions stacked upon one another, and you can end up in this position. And look, the Conservative Party has been in that kind of position or close to it in the past, as has the Liberals, and leadership matters. It really does.
It's so scary. It's very scary for a political party. And, if, you think back of Dion and Ignatieff and, my God, if Trudeau hadn't come along, if his celebrity and frankly, his innate leadership ability, right? Which people might scoff to hear that now, but his decisiveness and, I don't know that anybody else in that leadership race would have taken them anywhere other than oblivion. The party literally could have been
impressive people. Mark Garneau was leader. We would not be seriously contesting elections today.
No, that's right. And that's it. People never imagine that the demise is possible, but BC United, BC Liberal Party, it's clearly its death rattle is being heard.
Yeah. All right. Let's our last segment today is about Poilievre advertising, presumably bored of kicking the Liberals around. Poilievre trained his sights on NDP leader Jagmeet Singh last week. I say Jagmeet because I think that's correct, but the ad they ran says Jagmeet, which I think is interesting. Among other things, this shows the power of the Conservative war chest in that they have the resources to attack the third-party leader. There are quite a number of NDP seats vulnerable to the Conservatives, and I think this will be effective. It isolates Singh from the working class, middle class voters, undercuts his motivations, and associates him with Trudeau. Boom, to me.
Jagmeet Singh is used to getting what he wants. He went to a high-priced American private school in Beverly Hills. Rolex watches, BMWs, Versace bag. But now he's got a problem. He needs to delay the election till next year when he qualifies for his $2 million pension. So he sold you out, signed on with Trudeau to raise taxes, crime, and housing costs. Sell out Singh. He gets his pension. You pay the price.
Scott, do you agree?
Yeah. I think it's interesting for a couple of reasons. I think, you would logically say that the by-election maybe, that they're in such a world of resource richness that they can afford to do some advertising to try to see what happens in that LaSalle Limard by-election or Transcona and fiddle with it. Obviously, Transcona's high on the Conservatives' wish list. It probably is a gettable riding, or it might be at least in this environment. And the fact that you have the financial flexibility to say, yeah, we can actually launch national ads in order to, driven by, this specific circumstance. I think the ads are effective. I think they're uncomfortably effective. Most of all, I think the most demoralizing thing for them, if I was the NDP, is that this is the most that people have heard about or from Singh in quite a while. And I agree with you. Like, I wonder if it could perniciously cause the NDP to more actively stampede toward, let's end this agreement. We can no longer afford this sustained association with Trudeau. And it's going to be harder and harder and harder to maintain that agreement, because I think the logic of it is weaker and weaker and weaker for the NDP. I think for the Liberals also, I've made that argument in the past, but I definitely think for the NDP. So I wouldn't be surprised if their demands start to get like, I want a battleship and a back rub. I want someone to be at my house and feed me grapes, and that someone has to be Stéphane Guilbeault. What could their wish list be in the fall? Like, I think it could be astronomical.
I think their wish list is not having an election. And to the extent, one of the things I'm curious about this tactic is that the weaker the NDP are, the less likely there is to be an election. And so I'm curious as about why the Conservatives want to drive the NDP vote down now.
Conservatives are in two different fights and, in two different types of ridings. And I'll focus more on Ontario where I spend more time on this, but there are, as you particularly know, David, like the Liberals and the Conservatives fight in two-way races in like the 905 belt and in 613, and there are parts of the provinces where that is the fight. But there are other parts of the province where it's a Conservative NDP fight. And that's Northern Ontario. That's parts of the prairies. That's parts of British Columbia, like the interior. That's Northern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, right? Like it's the Niagara Peninsula. These are places where it's more of a Conservative NDP fight. And I think that is like incredibly on point. Like incredibly effective. And I also think if you're, watching what the Conservatives have been doing, not a new thing. This is new in that this is a new ad, but they've been, targeting ads and NDP held ridings against them for months now. And all sort of thematically, I think in a similar spot. The NDP are not your grandpa's NDP. They are not aligned with your values, and they don't focus on the same things, and in some cases maybe kind of diametrically opposed to what your
walk me through the
interests are.
political calculation, Kory. So why don't the Conservatives really want the NDP to be at 22 and the Liberals at 21 right now?
I don't think there's going to be a stampede towards NDP, which is I think what you're getting at. Like I think when do Conservatives win the most seats? It's when the NDP are and the Liberals are more or less in balance, and we're pretty close to that right now. But it's that balance is like looking at national numbers. When you're looking at regional numbers, there are more seats for them to gain by pushing the NDP down. If the NDP are being pushed down in Vancouver, if they're being pushed down in Southwestern Ontario, they're being pushed down in Northern Ontario. So, look. I don't know. I think we've talked about this before. I think we give Singh too much of a free pass on this show too often. I think you could make the case that his leadership.
We used to talk about the Greens too, but we've stopped that. I mean, part of the reason we don't talk about it, Kory, is it's so irrelevant. He's so absent from the discourse.
Well, why the caucus there is not running him out on a rail is beyond me. Like we talk about discontent in the Liberal caucus and discontent within the Liberal Party around Trudeau and where they are. It's not
a party that's about winning. It's a party that is content not to win. So it's not the same thing.
Well, apparently they're a party that's content to be cut in half in terms of the number of seats they have for the second time with this same loser as a leader. Like,
it's true.
How bad do you have to be? Like, he is literally going to have cut their caucus in half twice. Like, most people only get to do that once. Twice. Wow. Like, it's one for the history books.
I don't know, guys. I just think an NDP this week could drag the Liberals into 2026.
Yeah. Well, but we've been thinking that for a while now, right? Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But look, I don't think time is helping the Liberals or the NDP. And if you continue to see fundraising numbers and crowds and all of that you've been seeing with Poilievre, like, what's the harm in waiting if you're him? Like, it's there is no sign
change, though. They don't want a Liberal leadership change. I don't think they do. I don't know that they fear it. I'm not saying that they think they're fucked if the Liberals change leaders. They're probably going to win anyway, but they don't want that.
It's beyond their control one way or another whether that happens, I think. And look, I would want to keep Trudeau. Like, I think Trudeau, you've got a lot of brand equity in terms of your attacks on him, for sure. But like, who's going to be coming in behind him? And in some cases, maybe it's better. Like, or maybe it doesn't change anything at all. Like a Freeland, I don't think is better. Like, maybe worse. You're getting somebody is equally tied to the record, but with less ability or proven ability to campaign and to message. Or maybe it's Mark Carney, who's like, if you think Michael Ignatieff was a bit of a walking stereotype of a wealthy douchebag, like, come on in, Mark. Like, it's I don't think it's necessarily better if you're Poilievre.
We'll continue to debate that one. We'll continue to debate that one. Right. All right. You know what, guys? That's our show. Let's go to our Hey Yous.
Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats. The Hey Yous are about to begin.
Right. Scott, are you ready?
Sure. I've got a weird one this week. My Hey Yous to Jerome Powell and the Fed.
That is weird.
It is. You're scaring me, man. This sell-off yesterday and then today, markets are way back up and not quite up as much. And then people are talking about the potential for an emergency Fed cut. I sort of look at economics and say that is a preview of politics, and this soft landing has been a thing, and there's been lots of economic dislocation and the pain. It's created all kinds of political turmoil, but the soft landing has largely been sort of within sight. And now all of a sudden I start to wonder, is it not happening? Is it not happening? And it doesn't matter how sound the data is in Canada. If the United States goes into fire drill territory, if they have an emergency bank rate, if the markets freak out, if all of a sudden business and consumer confidence collapses in the United States, that is bad for us, man. And so my Hey Yous to the Fed, play your cards right, man. I'm not convinced you have played your cards as well as you could have. I think maybe you probably should have had a cut a little bit earlier. But boy, oh boy, please play your cards right, because you're not only is America now playing at dice with the political future of the world and with the idea of putting Trump back into the presidency, but now the economy is at fucking risk because of what's happening there, the world economy. It just scares the living bejesus out of me.
Yeah. All right. Jesus, that's dark. All right. Kory?
Well, it leverages a little bit what we were just talking about in terms of the advertising with Singh. I want to throw my Hey You out to Rob Staley and the Conservative Party of Canada Fund and all the people involved with it. The absolute crushing fundraising numbers are, I think, one of the most unspoken about factors in what the next election and what the political landscape look like right now. I think it's even much better than those top line numbers are, because
that's better than it used to be.
Some inkling that around that, like, I think there's been a lot of work done to really structurally change the way the party raises money. Less phones. Pushing more towards new technology. It's really is a tour de force in terms of the fundraising in Canadian politics. And I think all the other parties out there, be them conservative or not, are going to be studying what's been done by the Conservative Party Fund and looking at it very carefully, because I think they're really setting the pace everywhere.
If you reverse the money between the Liberals and the Conservatives, this would be a closer race.
100%. But you're seeing just Like, to say that they're winning is, an insult to winning. Like, they're lapping the other parties.
They have enough money to attack both parties all the time, right?
Yeah.
Right. Nobody else can get an ad on the air.
Yeah.
All right, my hey you goes out to Katie Telford and the other people at the top of the Liberal ticket these days. This summer of drift and lethargy is really dispiriting. And nobody has a message. Nobody knows what our message is anymore. What's a Liberal out there supposed to be saying right now? What's the proactive message? What's the defensive message? I just see people flailing around, from ministers to Liberals. Everybody's trying to invent their own thing. If you're going to do this job, do the fucking job. What is the message of this government right now? What is the message of this party right now? Figure that out pretty quickly, or we're in a lot of trouble. All right, folks, that's our show for today. Listen, you were cursed. Thanks for being here with us, even though we're down at Jordan. I think she's back next week, and I'm sure it'll be a better show as a consequence. Thank you, Kory and Scott, for being here with me. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, TELUS, our sponsor, CN, everybody who watched or listened. Kory and Scott, you guys are the best. We'll see you next week.